Chapter 7. The All-Powerful Creator, Preserver, Destroyer. I am the Atma that dwells in all living beings. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all things. All that you see in the cosmos, the moving and the stationary object, is the manifestation of the Atma, Baba. Creation, Srishti. To alter a living being into a non-living entity and vice versa is one of the sportive gestures, leelas, of God as demonstrated several times by Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Ant becomes beads. On the holy occasion of Fridays in the month of Shravan, married Hindu women customarily perform Gauri Puja, worship of goddess Parvati. A Hindu couple wished to avail of one such occasion to worship also the lotus feet, Pada Puja, of Swami. They requested Swami for permission, which was readily granted. They then gathered all the materials needed, but they could not get hold of black beads, which are essential for the puja. At the appointment hour, Swami arrived and took his seat. In their excitement, the couple totally overlooked the absence of the all important beads and commenced the ceremony. Suddenly, a big black ant crawled out of a flower offered at Swami's feet. Swami smiled indulgently and commented, "What? Are you worshipping me with black ants?" And he picked up the crawling insect and placed it in the lady's hand. To their wonderment, the ant suddenly changed into two black beads. So, the only thing wanting for due performance of the worship reached their hand after all. The grateful devotees were astonished at Swami's ability to create by his mere will. The lady was immensely pleased that Baba enabled her to complete the ceremony satisfactorily in accordance with the prescribed procedure. In this instance, Baba altered a living object into a non-living object without taking away life. But there is another beautiful episode where he changed lifeless objects into a living being. Parrot from betel leaves. Swami was at that time touring Andhra Pradesh. He stayed in a devotee's house. After meals, a silver plate containing tender betel leaves, areca nut powder, lime, and other ingredients was placed before him. He leisurely removed the ribs from the leaves as he prepared the latter for eating, and he carefully arranged the ribs in the plate in the shape of a parrot. He was all the while talking with devotees gathered around him, and he suddenly asked them a question. "What do you think God is busy with?" They answered, "Srishti is what the God is busy with." Swami promptly touched the parrot's form on the plate in front of him. It suddenly came to life and flew out, vigorously beating its wings. The devotees were astonished at the wonderful sight. Joining in the general merriment, Swami too laughed enchantingly. Diamond ear tops in cookie. Indulal Shah once invited Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba to dinner in his house in Bombay, now known as Mumbai. Swami was seated on one side of the dining table. Opposite him sat Shah and his daughter. Mrs. Shaw brought a plate of freshly cooked hot vadas, savory cookies made with soaked black gram paste deep fried in oil, and placed it before Swami. He picked up one of them and placed it on the plate of Shah's daughter and told her to break it into two before eating. When she did so, she found a diamond studded ear top in each piece. All of them were thrilled. Swami himself put them one each on the girl's ears. It was Kodaikanal in the fourth week of April in 1997. Several devotees were dining with Swami. Swami finished his meal and was going around the devotees talking to them in the dining hall. He went near a devotee and said, "Break the puris, puffed and deep fried naan like dish, before you eat." The person did as suggested by Swami and found to his surprise a golden ring. Swami said, "That's for you. Have it." Everyone was pleasantly surprised. Anil Kumar was also there eating puris. Swami asked him to eat fast. "Swami, who knows what have you put in which puri?" said Anil Kumar. He further added, "So I am checking every puri and I am eating carefully." Everyone had a hearty laugh at Anil Kumar's words. In every such event, the issue is not what has been created out of what. It is Swami's will that matters. That alone is the central factor, the cause as well as the effect. Swami once declared, "What I will happens, what I order materializes." Maintenance. Sthiti. On one occasion in Trai, Swami's residence at Vrindavan, Swami invited Brigadier S.K. Bose to address the assembled students and staff. The brigadier spoke mostly about the lessons he had learnt at the feet of Swami, concluded his talk, and approached Swami to touch his feet. Swami did not allow him to do so but asked him, "Why did you make no mention of what happened on the Dashera day?" Brigadier Bose replied, "Swami, what should I say about it? I am merely an instrument in your sublime hands. I do not have any individuality of my own. I am ever grateful to you, Swami. I cannot describe my indebtedness adequately in words." After that, Swami granted him the privilege of touching his feet. As Brigadier Bose slowly moved to his seat, Swami told members of the staff, "That day, Bose was indeed dead. I brought him back to life. He has still plenty to do for me." 2 months earlier, Swami had entrusted to Bose the work of laying a 12 feet wide concrete strip around the mandir. He also directed that it should be completed before the beginning of the Dashera festivities. The job took 25 days at the rate of 12 hours of daily labor. Many a devotee participated in the labor of love and devotion. After finishing the job on time, Bose attended every evening discourse that Swami delivers customarily during the Dashera celebrations spread over 10 days. On the final day, Vijayadashami, Thursday, 20th October 1988, he was suffering from high temperature. Nevertheless, he made his labored way to the Purnachandra auditorium and sat in a chair close to the dais. Swami commenced his discourse. Meanwhile, Bose began feeling loss of breath. Suddenly, he collapsed in his chair. But strangely, even though his eyes were closed, he was aware of what was happening around him. He saw a huge golden colored bird standing there and looking at Bose with eyes full of pity. Bose could not imagine how a bird so big could make its way into the auditorium. But he saw that Swami raised both his hands and waved them as if he was driving the bird away, and it just disappeared. In the course of his discourse, Swami was reciting a verse. He abruptly stopped midway through the verse and quickly came down from the dais. He seemed to be holding something in his closed right fist. As he lifted up Bose by the shoulder with the left hand, Swami patted the back of Bose's head with the right hand. Probably he was holding Bose's life in the right fist, and while patting on the backside of his head, inducted life back into his body. Bose opened his eyes. He was surprised to see Swami standing close at hand just by his side, that too on the holy Vijayadashami. Wanting to touch Swami's feet, he extended his hand. Swami told him to get up and stand, but Bose continued to sit, offering salutation to him. Swami patted on his back to give him strength. He told him, "Stand up, come on to the dais, and take your seat near the door." Bose obeyed. Then Swami resumed his interrupted discourse and went on speaking for a full hour. The lifeless face of Bose steadily and gradually acquired the glow of life within that hour. About 2 months later, the sports day was being celebrated in the Hillview Stadium. At the outset, Swami hoisted the game's flag. Bose was present there and was thrilled to see on that flag the image of the celestial bird Garuda, the vehicle of Lord Sri Mahavishnu. Bose remembered that it was the same bird that had sat over him on the Vijayadashami day with its eyes full of pity for him. Bose came to know much later that according to the Garuda Purana, it is Garuda that carries saintly souls to heaven, Brahmaloka. Brigadier Bose was referring to this episode when he humbly pleaded with Swami that Bhagavan had restored him to life and that it was beyond him to find words to describe his gratitude to him. You are embodiment of Atma. Baba once elucidated the nature of Atma and its relationship with the constituents of the physical body, like limbs, organs, senses, mind, intellect, etc. The essence of what he said is briefly given below. Mind, manas, consciousness, chitta, awareness, senses, indriyas, all these join together to give full shape to the body. But Atma is not the combination of all these things. There is Atma in the body, there is Atma in the mind, and there is Atma in the consciousness and the senses. All these function under the direction of Atma. This can be illustrated by a simple analogy. A car has steering, clutch, brakes, and several other parts. Does each of them function on their own? When one travels by car, does the horn blow on its own? Does the steering move by itself? Obviously not. There is a driver behind all these. Likewise, body is the vehicle and Atma the driver. The driver makes the eyes see, ears hear, and mouth speak. It is only as long as the driver is present that the various parts perform their allotted functions. Once the driver abandons the body, the very same eyes can no longer see, the same ears cannot hear, the same hands can do nothing, the same mouth can talk no more. All the organs and parts become non functional. Earlier, all these were made to work, to function by a master, the Atma. As long as the master remains in it, this body is Shivam, divine auspicious. When he leaves, it is but a Shavam, corpse. If we deeply ponder over our true identity, as Swami repeatedly suggests, we will soon realize that we are but embodiments of the inner self, Atma, and that the parts, organs, and other constituents of this earthly body are merely instruments and by no means that inner self. The Simla incident. Here is yet another instance of the suprahuman divine power of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Once Sri Satya Sai went to Shimla along with some of his devotees. Swami Karunyananda was too in the group. That trip saw an unbelievable event. It was evening when the party arrived at their lodging in Simla. At about 6:30 p.m., as darkness approached, a 2-year-old boy died in a house in the town. The parents were grief-stricken. Seeing their agony, a friend advised them, Sri Satyasai Baba is now in town. Take your son's dead body there, place him at his feet, and beg for mercy. The distraught parents wrapped the dead body in a piece of cloth and took it to Baba. Heartbroken with grief, the mother laid the dead child at Baba's feet and wailed, Swami, please bring him back to life. Wake him up to life. As the poor woman was crying, the ever merciful Bhagavan cast a compassionate look at the dead boy. The boy suddenly came to life and began crying. The tears of grief and desperation of the parents turned to tears of joy. They washed the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Sai with their copious tears. The devotees too were overjoyed and immensely moved at this miraculous happening and hailed the glory of Bhagavan with the resounding cries of Jai Shri Ram, Jai Sai Ram, Jai Sai Ram. Ultimate dissolution, lion. Karanam Subbamma was a blessed soul who cared for Swami when he was a child and was known as Satyam and loved him as if he was her own son. As the ever-swelling crowds of devotees arrived to have his darshan, the lady cooked meals and fed them. Through endless service to Swami and his devotees, she used to feel that her life's mission was fulfilled. When Prashanti Nilayam was being built, Swami told her one day that she would live for only one more year. Though somewhat taken aback, she pulled herself together and devoted herself with more sincerity and devotion to Swami's service. Her health was slowly deteriorating. Kith and kin of her natal home took her to their village to look after her. But she could scarcely endure separation from her beloved Swami and returned very soon to Puttaparthi to do as much service as possible despite her poor and deteriorating health. Time passed. Some devotees came to Puttaparthi to invite Swami to their place. Before leaving Puttaparthi, Swami promised Subbamma that at the time of her demise, he would make it a point to reach her and place holy Ganga water in her mouth. Soon thereafter, Subama passed away. Some of the villagers recalled Swami's promise and talked about it mockingly that Swami did not keep his promise of offering holy water to Subama before her death. At that moment, Bhagavan was among his devotees in a far off place near Tirupati. He set out for Puttaparthi, telling them that he had to go to Puttaparthi urgently. On his arrival, he was informed that Subama had breathed her last several hours earlier. He found Subama's body already with ants crawling all over. He announced, Subama is not dead, she is still alive. But those around insisted that she had stopped breathing long ago, that she had indeed died, but that they were nevertheless keeping the body only for Swami's arrival. But Swami reiterated that Subama was still alive. He came close to her and called out, Look, Subama, I am your Swami, I have come. And to the consternation of everybody around, Subama opened her eyes wide. Tears trickled out of her eyes. The onlookers were dumbstruck. Swami tenderly touched her lips with his fingers, and the cool waters of the celestial Ganga flowed out of his divine fingers onto the parched lips. She lapped them up and swallowed. Her face was aglow with indescribable satisfaction and happiness. She touched Swami's hand softly as she closed her eyes for the last time. Swami knows perfectly the exact moment of everyone's death. Creation, maintenance, and ultimate dissolution are within Swami's absolute control. That is why he is God himself. Creation, maintenance, and dissolution are in my hand. Swami was once conversing with devotees in his interview room. He showed them his palm and asked what was there in it. Somebody answered that there was nothing there. But Baba said in all serenity, This empty hand holds everything. When he closed it and opened it a moment later, there was a locust there. Wonder of wonders, there was also a tiny leaf to serve as the insect's food. The locust was actually feeding on it. In a little while, Swami closed his fist and opened it to reveal that nothing was there. The devotees present in the room could not believe their eyes. Through this incident, Swami revealed to all of us, ignorant as we are, that creation, maintenance, and dissolution lie in his control. This incident took place about 30 years ago. Bhagavan explained his divinity in a few pregnant words. He declared, Ba denotes creation, Ga denotes protection, and Va denotes ultimate dissolution. He who embodies these three supreme powers is Bhagavan. Herein lies the sublime secret of my essentiality. Om Shri Satya Sai Parabrahmane Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. End of chapter 7. Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satya Devaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat.